The Great Wall stretches endlessly across the land, its stones glowing in the first pale light. Each morning it greets only the wind and the ghosts of those who built it. Centuries ago, this wonder was hewn entirely by hand. At that time there were no machines, all the work depended on manpower. Now the great structure is a silent, sleeping giant, but long ago it was alive with the clang of hammers and the creak of wooden levers. An old Chinese saying holds that each stone in the wall represents a life lost, and today we remember those forgotten souls. The quiet cold air carries distant echoes of strained voices and the rhythm of labor. 2 millennia ago, Qin Shi Huang, China's first emperor, united the warring states and dreamed of an unbreakable barrier against the northern tribes. With fanatical vision he turned earlier fortifications into a new Great Wall. Under his command, hundreds of thousands of workers were mobilized to stitch together a line of defense. In the emperor's presence, generals bowed and maps unrolled, but far from the throne the grim reality took shape. Distant mountain ridges were chosen for their height, valleys were dammed with earth. Every log carried, every stone hoisted was touched by imperial decree. This wall was meant to seal off danger, or perhaps to prove the power of the throne itself. To build the wall, Qin's agents swept up soldiers, peasants and convicts alike. One source notes that the labor force was made up of 3 groups: soldiers, common people and criminals. 300,000 veteran troops were sent by General Meng Tian after battles in the north, and as many as 500,000 local villagers were conscripted into the ranks. Neighbors and family members suddenly found themselves bound for the frontier, leaving quiet farms for wild hills. Those branded as prisoners, thieves, rebels or just unlucky men, were also dragged off in chains. The camp was a restless sea of faces, from hardened warriors to terrified youths, all driven by fear or duty. The men worked wherever they were sent, on steep slopes and across deep gorges, wherever a pile of brick and earth could block an enemy. Builders tried to use local materials to ease the burden. In the high passes they chopped slabs from the cliffs, on the flatlands they packed buckets of earth into wooden frames. Every brick was moved by arms and shoulders. The wind whipped dust into their faces as they mixed mud and chopped wood. When an avalanche of earth fell or a wall section caved, the victims were simply buried under the debris. The echo of hammers and the groans of the wounded filled the air. At night, campfires flickered on the ground where tomorrow's wall would rise. The work was brutal and unrelenting. Each day men groaned under unbearable loads, their backs bent under woven bamboo frames bulging with stone. They ate dark grain boiled thin and slept wherever dust settled, on the cold ground or propped against a wall. Disease was common and clean water scarce. Sometimes fever would overtake a work gang before they even finished their shift. News of home came as late whispers, crops ruined by absence, families living in fear. Sometimes all the men in the nation were forced to construct, one account recalls, and the Great Wall construction led to a large number of deaths and injuries. The landscape itself seemed to rebel. Sudden storms flooded camps, blizzards buried checkpoints. The cries of the dying mingled with the murmur of construction. Many of the most helpless were the criminals. The law conscripted them as payment for their crimes. Hair shorn, forced into padded armor, they were loaded with metal collars and shackles. By day they marched patrol around the narrow battlements. By night they took turns carrying earth and brick, like beasts pulling a plow. Every town had its prison, every cell its crew. The typical sentence was 4 years on the wall, though none expected to see freedom. Harsh punishment was enforced without mercy. Legend even says that any who faltered or tried to flee might be buried alive as an example. Here on the darkened wall, dim lanterns flickered in the eyes of the condemned. They did not know that their names would vanish from history. Over centuries, myths grew around these suffering souls. Folk tales whispered of entire villages carried off, of bones cemented into the bricks. A chill wind carrying a laborer's lament might spark a legend. One popular story even became a great folk tale, that of a devoted wife whose tears shook the wall. These stories spread across China, warning of tyrants and honoring perseverance. In the quiet of night, a villager might swear they heard chisel and chain echoing against the stones. But whether myth or memory, the truth was this: thousands labored to fill the earthworks and many perished in the attempt. Perhaps the most famous tale is that of Meng Jiangnu. She was a young wife whose husband Fan Qiliang was taken to the wall only 3 days after their wedding. Meng Jiang followed her husband as far as she dared, searching among the labor camps. When at last she reached the wall at Shanhaiguan Pass, the answer was beyond hope. Fan Qiliang had already died of exhaustion and was buried in the Great Wall. Overcome with grief, she wept night and day. The legend says her cries were so bitter that a great section of the wall collapsed, revealing her husband's bones. Even the first emperor himself is said to have been moved, building a temple in honor of her devotion. Meng Jiangnu's sorrow lives on as one of China's 4 great folktales, a testament to love and loss amid imperial duty. Qin Shi Huang's dream of security and immortality cast a long shadow. Wall building became an obsession intertwined with his rule. He believed that an unbroken wall would keep the Xiongnu nomads at bay and perhaps secure his own legacy. The emperor himself rarely saw the frontier's storms or the backs bent by labor, yet his presence was felt. His decree hung on every scaffold. When a section of wall did collapse, it was considered an insult to his power, and officials faced grave punishment. The wall was not just earth and brick, but a symbol of the empire's might, a scale upon which one man's will weigh 1,000 lives. By the time the emperor died, many of the laborers had never returned home. Mass graves and forgotten burial sites sprang up along the wall's route. Nearby hillsides became makeshift cemeteries. It is said that the Great Wall became the longest cemetery on Earth, though historians note that no bodies have ever been found within the wall itself. In truth, most builders were likely buried or left in shallow pits beside the work sites. To this day, Chinese villagers tell how bones occasionally surface when the earth erodes. The wall's stones stand like silent mourners over these unknown dead. Centuries later, the Great Wall endures, mostly rebuilt by Ming artisans who knew its legends. The voices of the workers themselves are gone, but memory survives in stone and story. At Shanhaiguan stands the Temple of Lady Mengjiang, built in 1594 and rebuilt in the Ming era, where an inscription honors the woman who wept the wall down. Scholars and storytellers still speak of the builder's hardships. And each year, quiet ceremonies are held to remember those who died. The wall is no longer a weapon or a barrier to most. It is a cherished symbol and a reminder of sacrifice. As a History.com article notes, what the wall symbolizes today is Chinese civilization's enduring strength, built, brick by brick, on the backs of countless unnamed people. People still debate how true the old legends are. Some claim archaeologists have found remains of workers near the wall, but most experts caution these may be local burials from after construction. Contemporary engineers note that buried bodies would rot and destabilize the ramparts, so it seems unlikely the wall ever contained human skeletons as mortar. The story of Meng Jiangnu reveals more about collective memory than literal fact. In reality, many of the builders' names and personal stories were never recorded at all. What is clear is that the wall stands on genuine sacrifice, even if no bones lie within the bricks. It is up to us to remember the truth hidden behind the myths. Today the Great Wall still snakes across deserts and mountains. It has become a peaceful monument where travelers tread softly. Under the morning sun, the wall seems to glow with quiet majesty. But every ripple in the stone reminds us of the hands that made it. Though dynasties have risen and fallen, the wall endures as a monument to their labor. Each ruined tower and worn stone has a story, often untold, of a person who once touched it. We hear their presence in the creak of a gate or a distant echo, if we listen closely. Under the stars the wall lies silent. In the dim light one might imagine the phantom silhouettes of guards and laborers still on watch, silent guardians of history. Their whispered songs and labors have become part of the wind. The wall itself is their legacy, an empire's forgotten lullaby sung in stone. As each night falls, it carries with it a prayer for the nameless souls. May we remember them when day returns. As dawn breaks once more, we stand humbled at the wall's edge. The chill is gone, replaced by a warm golden light that glints off each block. Here, history has been laid brick by souls long gone. Their names may be unknown, but their legacy holds firm. We close our eyes and listen. The wind seems to carry 1,000 unheard thank yous. In their honor we tell this story. Sleep now, comforted by the knowledge that even the smallest life can leave an eternal mark on the world.